Good evening, dear soul. This is Tara. The night has arrived softly, wrapping the world in stillness. I welcome you into this gentle hour of peace. You are safe here, surrounded by calm. Before we begin tonight's journey, take a deep breath in and slowly let it go. Feel the air move through you, as though the universe itself breathes alongside you. Tell me where you are listening from. Leave a small line in the comments so these quiet hours can know one another. Now, wherever you are, perhaps resting in your bed, perhaps watching the moon through a quiet window, bring your awareness to this moment. Let the noise of the day drift away like clouds leaving a blue sky. You are here now, in the stillness between thoughts. Tonight, I will share stories born from the ancient wisdom of the Dhammapada. Verses 15 to 18, teachings that speak of sorrow and joy, cause and effect, the mirror of the heart. These verses are not distant scriptures. They are living truths that breathe inside each of us. They whisper of how our deeds, small and unseen, weave the pattern of our peace or our pain. As the Buddha once said, the mind is the forerunner of all things. Whatever we think, speak, or do returns to us, not as punishment, but as reflection. Like a lake returning the image of the sky, our actions reflect back upon us, shaping both this life and the next. So tonight, let us listen not with the mind that analyzes, but with the heart that feels. Each story will carry a light, some dim, some bright, but together they form the path to awakening. Close your eyes, dear listener, and imagine yourself walking through a quiet forest. The moon hangs above the trees, pouring silver light across the earth. A faint wind brushes your skin, carrying the scent of jasmine and wet soil. Somewhere in the distance, you hear the slow ringing of a temple bell, each tone fading into silence, calling you inward. With every breath, you walk deeper into stillness. The sound of your footsteps softens until even the earth seems to listen. Ahead, a small wooden bridge appears over a pond. Fireflies shimmer in the mist. On the far side of the bridge stands an old lantern, glowing faintly beside a simple stone bench. Sit there, if only in your imagination. Feel the light resting gently on your face. This is the place between worlds, where the noise of life ends and the wisdom of silence begins. From this stillness, let the first story rise. It is the story of a man who forgot the tenderness of the heart. His name was Cunda, a butcher who spent his life taking what was never his to take. For 55 years, he lived without kindness, and when his final days arrived, the pain he had given returned to him, multiplied. But that story will come soon. For now, sit quietly and understand this. The seeds we plant through thought, word, and action will bloom, whether we wish them to or not. The soil never forgets. The Dhammapada teaches that one who does harm suffers twice, first in the act itself, and later in the echo it leaves behind. But one who does good rejoices twice, first in the peace that follows kindness, and again in the joy that blossoms when the heart remembers its purity. Imagine this truth as a river flowing through the forest of your mind. On one bank lies sorrow, on the other joy. The current between them is our intention. Wherever your thoughts move, the current flows. Take another breath in and out. Notice how the body relaxes as the breath softens. The heart becomes light, the mind open. This is how wisdom enters, not with force, but like moonlight entering through an open window. In ancient times, monks and laypeople alike gathered at night to hear stories like these. They would light oil lamps, offer flowers, and listen in silence, not for entertainment, but to remember what the world often makes us forget. That every being, even the smallest insect, seeks happiness and fears pain. When we live with this awareness, our hearts grow wide enough to hold both joy and sorrow without breaking. That is the essence of the Dhammapada's teaching. It is not a book of commands, but a song of cause and effect, a melody that returns us to balance. Let this melody settle inside you. Feel the warmth in your chest, the gentleness in your breath. As the night deepens, the stories will unfold like lotus petals, each revealing another layer of truth. First comes the story of grief, of a man whose cruelty chained him to suffering. Then the story of joy, of a soul who lived in generosity and found peace even in death. Then the story of envy, of one who sought to harm the awakened one and was consumed by his own fire. And finally, the story of radiant faith, of a young woman whose light transcended death itself. Together, they weave the lesson of the 4 verses, that sorrow belongs to those who harm, that joy belongs to those who help, that torment belongs to those who deceive the heart, and that peace belongs to those who live in truth. Before we begin the journey, take one final deep breath. Inhale peace. Exhale all that you no longer need. Now, in this space of quiet awareness, the first story begins to whisper through the night, the story of Cunda, the butcher who forgot compassion, and the law that even he could not escape. Let us walk gently toward that story, through the forest of cause and effect, where every sound carries meaning, and every silence, truth. In a quiet village near Rajagaha, where the bamboo groves swayed like soft waves beneath the morning sun, there lived a man named Cunda. The villagers called him the pork butcher. For 55 years, he woke before dawn, sharpened his knife, and walked into his small shed where cries of fear echoed each day. To him, this was work, ordinary, necessary. To the world, he seemed firm, self-contained, untouched by what he did. But the universe always remembers what the heart forgets. Each swing of his hand left an unseen scar on his mind. Though he laughed, though he ate, though he spoke to his friends, a quiet heaviness grew within him, like smoke filling a room he could not see. The Buddha once said, "Here he grieves, hereafter he grieves. The doer of evil grieves in both worlds." For sorrow is not a punishment given from above. It is the fruit ripening from the seed we ourselves have planted. In his youth, Cunda never paused to look into the eyes of the animals he harmed. In his middle years, he stopped noticing the world altogether. And as old age crept over him, his hands began to tremble. Yet his work continued. He earned money, ate food, and slept, but the nights grew restless. In dreams, he saw shapes moving, shadows crawling from dark corners. He heard cries that never came from human mouths. Still, he denied them, thinking, "These are only dreams." But dreams are often the voice of what the heart cannot face. One season, when the rain came late and the earth cracked beneath his feet, Cunda fell ill. His body twisted with fever. His breath grew shallow. He could no longer stand upright. His neighbors heard strange sounds coming from his house, grunts, squeals, and cries. Some said he had gone mad. Others whispered that the spirits of the animals had come for him. For 7 days, he crawled upon the floor, his body moving as if he had become the very creature he once killed. The monks of Veluvana heard of his suffering and went to the Buddha. They asked, "Master, why does this man die in such agony?" The Buddha replied, "He suffers from the mirror of his own deeds. His body may be old, but his actions were never forgotten by his mind. The heart remembers everything. Suffering," the Buddha explained, "is not only in the next life. It begins here, in the restlessness of conscience, in the unease that no wealth can ease. When the inner fire burns, no shadow can cool it." And so, on the 7th day, Cunda's final breath left his body. He was not surrounded by family or friends. Only silence remained, thick and still. But silence is never empty. It holds the echo of all we have done. They said his face twisted even in death, as though he saw something unbearable. And when he opened his eyes no more, his consciousness was drawn, as if by gravity, into a world that matched his own cruelty. A realm where cries never ceased, where pain had no pause. This is not a tale of punishment, but of reflection. In the universe, every act returns to its source. It is not the gods who condemn us. It is the mind that reveals what it has become. When the monks told the story of Cunda to others, they did so not to frighten, but to awaken. For the Buddha never spoke of fear. He spoke of cause and effect. The same law that binds suffering also frees us from it. The knife that once harmed can, in the hands of awareness, become a tool for compassion. As the Buddha said, when one sees the depravity of one's own deeds, one grieves and is afflicted. But that seeing, that moment of realization, is also the beginning of release. To know our suffering is to begin to end it. The villagers who once feared Cunda began to live differently. They spoke more softly, shared more food, and offered prayers at dawn for those they had wronged. For they understood that even a thought carries weight. The smallest kindness can cleanse the heart of lifetimes of pain. Cunda's story became a mirror for all who heard it. And though his life ended in darkness, his tale became a lantern for others. The Buddha used it to teach that no being is condemned forever. Even from the deepest pit, one can begin to rise, if one learns to see clearly. So tonight, as you lie beneath the soft blanket of night, reflect quietly. What seeds have I planted today? Were they of kindness or were they of harm? The heart, like the earth, accepts all seeds, but it is we who must choose what to sow. Take a deep breath, dear listener. Feel the air enter your chest and leave softly through your lips. Let compassion bloom in the silence. Know that peace does not come by running from pain. It comes by understanding it. Even a life once filled with cruelty can become the soil for awakening, just as night holds the promise of dawn. Tomorrow, we will walk from sorrow into joy, the story of Dhammika, the lay devotee whose generosity shone like a lamp against the darkness. His was a life that ended not in torment, but in music, in chariots of light descending from the heavens. But for now, rest. Let the lesson of Cunda sink like rain into the soil of your heart. May it nourish the seed of awareness that sleeps within you. Sleep gently, knowing this. The world changes the moment we do. The night deepens. Crickets hum softly beyond the window. The mind grows quieter, listening. The story of Cunda still lingers in the air like smoke after a fire, a reminder of how sorrow grows when compassion is forgotten. Yet, even in the darkest field, new seeds can sprout. The Buddha once told his disciples, "The heart is like the earth. It receives all things, both poison and perfume, yet it gives back only what is planted with intention." Those who plant kindness will see kindness bloom, just as surely as those who plant cruelty will meet pain. After the passing of Cunda, the monks sat in silence. Some were troubled, their faces pale with sorrow. "Master," they asked softly, "if deeds return to all in this way, is there any hope for those who live in ignorance?" The Buddha looked upon them with eyes as calm as still water. "There is always hope," he said. "For the moment one awakens to the truth, even for a breath, that moment becomes a seed of mercy." He told them another story, one that unfolded not in darkness, but in light. In the great city of Savatthi lived a man named Dhammika, a humble lay disciple who lived not in robes, but in the spirit of the Dhamma. His house stood near the edge of the city, surrounded by flowering trees. The air there always carried the scent of sandalwood and cooked rice. For every day, without fail, Dhammika prepared food for the monks who wandered through the streets in their silent morning rounds. He was not wealthy, but his generosity flowed like an endless stream. His eyes shone with the peace that only comes from selfless giving. People who passed his home often paused, drawn not by grandeur, but by the serenity that seemed to rest in the air itself. Dhammika's life was simple. Rise before dawn, light the lamps, prepare food, and serve all who came. No act was done for fame, no charity for praise. His joy was quiet, his smile constant. When others asked him why he gave so much, he would answer gently, because each act of giving cleans the mirror of the mind. He taught his 7 sons, and 7 daughters to live the same way, to treat service as a celebration. His home became known as a place of refuge for the weary, a sanctuary for monks, wanderers, and the poor alike. In the evenings, after the city had settled into calm, Dhammika would sit near his doorway and watch the stars. Sometimes he would close his eyes and recite verses of the Dhamma softly to himself. His neighbors often saw him smiling into the night sky. They thought him strange, but his heart was resting in something beyond the reach of ordinary thought, the quiet joy that comes from living in harmony with the law of cause and effect. The Buddha said, "As one who performs meritorious deeds rejoices here and hereafter, so does he rejoice seeing the purity of his own actions." Dhammika's life was that teaching made flesh. He rejoiced not only when others praised him, but even in solitude, for his peace came from within. His every act, however small, became a prayer in motion. Once, during a great festival, the people of Savatthi gathered near the Jetavana monastery to offer food to the monks. Dhammika arrived not with gold or gifts, but with a small bowl of rice and fruit. When he placed it before the monks, his eyes filled with quiet reverence. The Buddha accepted his offering with a smile. Many others had brought far grander offerings, yet the Buddha said, "Of all who have given today, none have given with a purer heart than this man." The monks later asked the Buddha, "Why do those who give find joy even in times of suffering?" He replied, "Because giving releases the mind from the prison of self. The hand that offers cannot hold fear." The Buddha continued, "If a man does good, let him do it again and again. Let him find joy in his good deeds, for happiness is the fragrance that follows virtue." That fragrance surrounded Dhammika all his life. It was unseen yet unmistakable, the perfume of peace that flows from a clear conscience. Years passed. His hair turned silver. His hands, once steady, trembled slightly. But his devotion did not wane. Even when illness visited his home, he continued to serve. "As long as I breathe," he would say softly, "I will live in gratitude." And so, when the final illness came upon him, it did not come as an enemy, but as a quiet messenger. He lay upon his bed, the scent of sandalwood in the air. His children gathered around him. He asked them not to weep, but to recite the teachings of mindfulness. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. As the monks began to chant the Maha Satipatthana Sutta, something miraculous occurred. 6 radiant chariots appeared in the sky, shimmering with light. They had come from 6 celestial worlds, each inviting him to ascend. But Dhammika, ever humble, asked them to wait until the recitation was finished. Even in that moment between worlds, his reverence for truth remained unbroken. When the chanting ended, he smiled. His eyes were clear, his breath soft. "Now," he whispered, "I am ready." He chose the chariot from the Tusita, heaven, the realm of serene joy, and passed away as peacefully as a lamp fading at dawn. The monks later told the Buddha, and he spoke again the verse, "Here he rejoices, hereafter he rejoices. The doer of good rejoices in both worlds." Thus, the story of Cunda and Dhammika became twin mirrors, one of shadow, one of light. Together, they teach us that suffering and joy are not gifts of the gods, but creations of the heart. Take a slow breath now. Feel how giving, even the smallest kindness, softens the body and lightens the mind. Let gratitude rise in you, quiet and warm. The path from sorrow to joy is not long. It is a single step taken with awareness. Tomorrow night, we will follow this path deeper into the story of Devadatta, whose envy turned his heart to fire, and whose fall revealed how even greatness can be undone by pride. But for now, rest gently. Let the seeds of mercy settle in your heart, and may their roots grow deep through your dreams. The sun was setting over Savatthi, its golden light spilling softly through the palm leaves that framed Dhammika's quiet home. Inside, the air was warm and fragrant with sandalwood and lotus oil. Lamps flickered gently by the walls, casting circles of gold upon the floor. The sounds of the city had faded. Only the rhythmic chant of monks filled the evening air, flowing through the house like the river of truth itself. Dhammika, the virtuous lay disciple, lay upon a simple bed. His breath was calm. His face, though pale from illness, glowed with the peace of one who had lived with an unburdened heart. His children sat near him in silence, their eyes moist, but their spirits steady. For they knew their father's life had been a life of harmony, filled with generosity, compassion, and mindfulness. For many years, Dhammika had served the Sangha, not as one seeking merit for himself, but as one who understood that joy multiplies only when shared. His home had never been closed to anyone in need. Wanderers had found shelter there. Hungry travelers had found food, and even stray animals were given water before the family took their own meal. As he lay there now, he did not fear death. He only wished that his final breath might be filled with gratitude. When his voice grew too weak to speak, he signaled gently to one of his sons and whispered, "Call the monks." His children bowed and went swiftly to the monastery. Soon, a line of saffron robes appeared along the road, the monks walking slowly, their bowls empty, their hearts open. When they arrived, they placed themselves around his bed and began to chant the Maha Satipatthana Sutta, the discourse on mindfulness. Their voices rose and fell like waves upon a calm sea. Every word carried the fragrance of truth, every syllable a reminder that all things arise and pass away. Dhammika listened deeply. His eyes closed, his lips moved faintly in rhythm with the chant. And then, something unseen by most, but radiant to the awakened eye, began to unfold. 6 chariots, adorned in celestial light, descended from the heavens. Each was different, one gleaming silver like the full moon, another golden like the rising sun, another lined with crystal, its light shimmering in all directions. They had come from 6 heavenly realms, their presence serene and silent. The beings who guided them were not of this world. Their forms were made of light, their faces gentle, their voices like wind through bamboo. They stood at the threshold, waiting. But Dhammika, ever humble, ever mindful, did not look up. He was still listening to the monks. For him, even at the door of heaven, the Dhamma came first. When the chanting ceased, one monk looked at him and said softly, "Lay disciple, the chanting is done." Dhammika opened his eyes. A faint smile curved his lips. Then he whispered, "The journey may begin." He turned to his children, who were watching in awe, and said, "My beloved ones, 6 chariots await, each from a world of bliss. But my heart is drawn to the two-seater realm, where joy is tranquil and the bodhisattvas dwell." He gestured to the garlands that lay near his bed. "Take one and offer it to the chariot of Tusita." A daughter, her hands trembling, lifted a garland of white jasmine and tossed it into the air. It fell, not upon the floor, but into the golden chariot that shone with soft light. A faint fragrance of flowers spread through the room, and the air itself seemed to hum in reverence. Dhammika took one final breath, calm and steady. His body relaxed completely. His eyes glowed faintly, and then grew still. It was as if a lamp had gone out, but its light lingered everywhere. The monks continued to sit in silence. No one spoke. There was no cry of grief, only the quiet awareness that something sacred had passed. At that moment, in the Tusita world, a new light appeared, the birth of Dhammika's consciousness into that realm of joy. Later, when the monks returned to the Buddha, they bowed and recounted what they had seen. The Buddha listened, his eyes half closed, his expression serene. After a long pause, he spoke softly. Here he rejoices, hereafter he rejoices. One who has performed good deeds rejoices in both worlds. He rejoices seeing the purity of his own deeds. He turned to the assembly and said, "Do you see the power of wholesome intention? Even the smallest act of kindness purifies the heart. When the body perishes, the fragrance of that virtue rises upward, beyond sight, beyond measure." And the monks understood. Dhammika's death was not the end of his joy, but its continuation, the unfolding of a seed that had been nurtured all his life. That night, the Buddha sat beneath the solid trees and spoke to his disciples about the law of karma. He said, "The heart is its own witness. One who lives in truth has nothing to fear in death. As the moon emerges from clouds, so the pure spirit rises beyond sorrow." He reminded them that heaven is not a reward from a distant deity, but the natural outcome of a mind at peace, and that every being, from the humblest to the most powerful, carries within it the potential for both worlds, the world of grief and the world of joy. As the night drew to a close, the monks lit a small lamp at the Jetavana monastery in memory of Dhammika. Its flame burned steadily, unmoved by wind. Some said the light did not flicker once through the long night, and those who meditated before it felt their hearts open like lotuses. Dhammika's story spread far and wide. His name became a symbol of what it means to live in harmony with the Dhamma, not by renouncing the world, but by filling it with goodness. Tonight, as you listen in stillness, let his peace touch your own heart. Breathe slowly. Feel your body soften into the bed beneath you. Let your breath become light, effortless. May the memory of Dhammika remind you that every gentle act, every selfless thought, builds a bridge between this world and the next. When you wake tomorrow, may you carry this light within you, the quiet joy of one who knows that goodness never dies. And now, as the flame of Dhammika's life fades into the eternal night, another story rises, one of ambition, envy, and fire. The story of Devadatta, whose hunger for power burned brighter than his wisdom, and whose fall revealed the danger of pride. Let us follow the sound of that fire into the next story. The wind moved softly through the bamboo outside the monastery. It was the hour before dawn, when the earth is silent, and even thoughts seem to rest. Within the Jetavana grove, a faint glow touched the horizon. The Buddha sat in meditation, surrounded by monks who waited quietly, their robes still as water. They had listened to the story of Dhammika the night before, the man whose compassion had carried him beyond sorrow. Yet, as the morning light grew, the Buddha spoke again. His voice was calm, yet heavy with meaning. "Monks," he said, "the heart is a mirror. It reflects all that it has done. Whether one lives as a king or as a beggar, whether one wears fine robes or rags, this mirror never forgets. It shows clearly what has been planted there: greed, anger, and delusion, or peace, kindness, and wisdom." The monks listened in silence, their minds steady. "There was once a disciple," the Buddha continued, "whose mirror became clouded by envy. His name was Devadatta. He too once sought truth, but his heart turned toward power." The air grew still. The monks knew the name well. Devadatta had once been close to the Buddha, even revered by many. Yet envy, once lit, burns brighter than reason. The Buddha paused. The faint call of a bird echoed through the grove. "Understand this," he said. "Suffering begins not when the world turns against us, but when the mind turns against itself. When envy, pride, or hatred arise, they darken the mirror, and we no longer see clearly. We begin to mistake the reflection for reality." He told them that Devadatta had once stood beside him at Kasambai. The Buddha was honored by kings and loved by disciples. The fragrance of his wisdom drew all hearts toward peace. But to Devadatta, that light became a wound. In another man's joy, he saw only his own lack. One evening, while the Buddha taught beneath a tree heavy with blossoms, Devadatta came forward. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned like coals. He said, "You have grown old, Master. Let me lead the order in your place." The Buddha looked upon him with compassion and said quietly, You are not ready, Devadatta. Leadership without purity brings harm, not peace. Those words pierced his pride. His mind twisted. He left the gathering, his thoughts churning like a storm. From that moment, his path curved downward. The Buddha turned to the monks and said, "So you see, the mind is its own enemy when it cannot rejoice in the joy of others. When one heart envies, it burns twice, once for what it desires, and once for what it destroys within itself." He then lifted a small bowl of water beside him and said, "If I drop a pinch of ash into this bowl, the water becomes dark. But if this same ash is thrown into a great river, it disappears. So too does the mind that has cultivated vast compassion remain clear, even when touched by anger or sorrow. But the narrow heart, like a small bowl, is easily clouded." The monks bowed their heads, understanding the depth of his words. One among them asked softly, "Master, can even such a heart be cleansed again?" The Buddha smiled. "Yes," he said, "even a mirror long clouded can be polished. No one is forever bound. The fire that burns can also light the way if we learn to hold it wisely." He then told them that Devadatta's story was not yet complete. His envy led him to harm, his pride to suffering, and his greed to ruin. Yet, even his fall would teach the world something precious, that no being, however misguided, is outside the reach of truth. He closed his eyes and said, "When we understand that the root of our pain lies not in the world, but in the heart, the mirror begins to clear. The moment one truly sees one's own reflection, wisdom begins." The monks bowed deeply. The sound of the morning breeze moved through the trees like a soft sigh. "Remember this," said the Buddha. "Joy and sorrow are not given by others. They are born from our own deeds, reflected back to us. One who harms another harms himself. One who blesses another blesses his own heart." The Buddha then rose slowly and walked toward the monastery's pond. The surface was still, holding the reflection of the sky and the trees. He gazed into the water and said quietly, "This is the mirror of the mind. What do you see when you look within?" The monks followed his gaze. In that clear surface, some saw their faces, others saw ripples, but all felt the truth of his words. And so, the Buddha began to tell them the full story, how Devadatta's envy turned to violence, how he sought to harm the very teacher who once guided him, and how in the end, his mind became his own tormentor. Before that story unfolds, let us pause here in this silence. Let us breathe as the Buddha breathed, seeing the mirror of our own hearts. Inhale softly, exhale fully. Let the breath polish the mind, washing away the dust of judgment, the ashes of envy, the stains of pride. Every moment of awareness is an act of cleansing. Every breath taken in kindness clears the mirror a little more. When the mirror shines, there is no need to seek heaven or fear hell. The reflection itself becomes paradise. And now, as dawn begins to bloom beyond the monastery walls, The next story begins, the story of Devadatta, the monk who turned against the light, and the lesson his fall left for the ages. Once in the ancient city of Rajagaha, beneath the shade of the Velovana Grove, lived a monk whose name was spoken with both respect and unease, Devadatta. He was born with grace, discipline, and intellect. His voice was calm, his conduct dignified, and in the early days of the Sangha, many thought him a second son beside the Buddha. But the seed of envy, once planted, can grow even in the most disciplined heart. At first, he followed the Buddha with devotion. He meditated, fasted, and spoke the Dhamma to the people. His eyes were sharp, his speech eloquent, his presence commanding. Kings and nobles began to praise him, saying, "Surely this monk will one day lead the order." Those words, light as air, became poison in his mind. He began to imagine himself as the successor to the enlightened one. Pride rose in him like a flame, small at first, then fierce, until it consumed the humility that once kept him whole. One evening, as the Buddha sat in the Velovana monastery surrounded by disciples, Devadatta approached. He bowed, but his heart was restless. He said, "Master, your years are many. The Sangha is vast, and trust the order to me, that I may guide it with strength and purity." The Buddha's eyes, serene and knowing, met his. "Devadatta," he said softly, "the Sangha needs not a hand of control, but a heart of compassion. Your time has not yet come." To the monks, it was a simple exchange, but to Devadatta, it was humiliation. Pride cracked open and released the venom of resentment. From that moment, his thoughts grew dark. He began to whisper among younger monks, promising stricter rules, greater discipline, a purer path. "The Buddha," he said, "has grown lenient. His compassion clouds his judgment." Thus began the fire of envy. The mind turned against its own teacher. The Buddha, knowing all hearts, did not stop him. For even a shadow serves to remind us of the light. But envy, when fed, does not stay still. It seeks action. So Devadatta plotted. First, he sent assassins to harm the Buddha, but those men, upon meeting the Blessed One, were overcome by his peace and turned their weapons away. They bowed, weeping, and became monks themselves. Then Devadatta climbed the Jade-Chakuta hill, rolling down a great rock as the Buddha passed below. The stone struck the Buddha's foot, drawing blood. Yet the enlightened one only smiled and said, "You have harmed only the body, Devadatta, not the mind." Still not satisfied, Devadatta went to the royal stables, where a fierce elephant named Nalagiri was kept. He ordered the beast to be made drunk and driven toward the Buddha. The streets of Rajagaha trembled as the elephant charged, its tusks glistening, its roar echoing through the city. People fled in terror, but the Buddha stood still. As the elephant neared, the master raised his hand, not in defense, but in boundless compassion. In that instant, the fury of the beast dissolved. Nalagiri bowed his head, knelt, and placed his trunk upon the Buddha's feet. The crowd gasped. Even then, the Buddha spoke not in anger, but in pity. Devadatta, he said, a mind that burns in hatred is its own hell. But Devadatta's heart had grown deaf. He left the Sangha and gathered followers of his own, declaring himself the true heir of the Dhamma. He built a monastery upon Gayasissa Hill, where his pride grew heavier each day. Yet as the body withers under poison, so too does the spirit when consumed by envy. Devadatta's health began to fail. His body weakened, his strength faded. In the end, when his breath grew thin, remorse found him. He longed to see the Buddha again, not as a rival, but as a teacher. He told his disciples, "Carry me to Jetavana. I wish to bow before the Master once more." They lifted his frail body upon a couch and began the journey. Along the way, his thoughts softened. He remembered the sound of the Buddha's voice, the peace that once filled his heart, the path he had abandoned for pride. Tears welled in his eyes. But fate is merciless only to those who wait too long. When they reached the pond outside the monastery, his carriers set down the couch and went to bathe. Devadatta lowered his feet to the earth. In that moment, the ground trembled. The soil beneath him opened, and he sank slowly, inch by inch. He cried out, "Buddha, forgive me." But the moment to seek forgiveness had passed. The monks said the earth did not swallow him as punishment, but as reflection, drawn by the gravity of his own deeds. His mind, filled with fire, returned to the realm where such fires burn unceasingly. The Avasai-Nurya, a world of torment born not of judgment, but of the echo of hatred itself. When the Buddha heard of his passing, he closed his eyes in stillness. "Here he is tormented," he said, "and hereafter he is tormented. The doer of evil suffers in both worlds. He laments, 'Evil have I done,' and suffers again in the lower realms." The monks asked, "Will he ever find peace?" The Buddha replied, "Even the deepest darkness holds a spark. Though hidden, the law of cause and effect is just. When that spark awakens, even the fallen may rise." Then he looked to the horizon, where dawn was breaking over the Jetavana grove. "Learn from his fall," he said, "for pride is a fire that consumes its own light. Let compassion be your shield and humility your guide." The monks bowed. The wind moved gently through the trees, carrying away the last echoes of Devadatta's name. Tonight, as you rest, remember this, that suffering does not come from others, but from the fires we kindle within. Let no envy live in your heart. Let no pride harden your voice. The heart at peace has no enemies. Take a breath. Let the air cool the fire of thought. Let it soften the ashes of judgment. Tomorrow, we will meet a different soul, one radiant and pure, a maiden named Sumana, whose mind shone like moonlight even as her body faded, and whose life revealed how goodness ripens into joy beyond death. For now, breathe gently. Let Devadatta's story remind you that even the fire of envy can teach the heart the value of calm. Sleep in that calm. Let stillness return to you. The night is quiet again. The moon hangs low over the monastery roofs, its light soft as silk upon the stone paths. The fires of Devadatta's envy have burned away, leaving only the scent of smoke and the silence that follows all storms. The monks sit in stillness. The Buddha, seated beneath the solid trees, looks out over the darkened forest. His gaze is calm, deep as the ocean. The disciples wait, sensing that another truth is about to unfold, one not of sorrow this time, but of renewal. He begins to speak softly, his voice blending with the night air. Just as a forest burns, and from its ashes, new green shoots arise, so too does the mind return to purity when understanding blossoms. Suffering, if met with wisdom, becomes the soil from which compassion grows. The heart is never truly destroyed, only hidden beneath its own misunderstanding. The monks listen, their eyes half closed, breathing in rhythm with the master's words. Devadatta's fall, the Buddha continues, teaches us that even fire has its lesson. It shows us what happens when pride forgets humility. But it also reminds us that every being carries within them the possibility of awakening. The lotus blooms not despite the mud, but because of it. He gestures toward the pond beside the grove. In the faint light, lotuses float, their white petals unstained by the dark water below. "Look there," he says. "The roots of those flowers are deep in mud, yet their blossoms rise pure and fragrant. So it is with the mind. Its roots may be buried in ignorance, but through awareness, it can rise above its past." The monks bow their heads. The night wind ripples across the pond, scattering reflections of the moon. The Buddha continues, "The world believes that pain and joy come from outside, from wealth, from loss, from praise, from blame. But the wise know that all joy and sorrow arise from the same source, the heart's own creation. When we understand this, we cease to chase the outer world and begin to tend the garden within." A young monk, his voice trembling with wonder, asks, "Master, can even one who has fallen so deeply ever rise again?" The Buddha smiles faintly. "If the seed of awareness remains, yes. The seed may lie dormant through countless lifetimes, but it cannot be destroyed. When the rains of mindfulness fall, even the hardest soil softens, and from that soil, the lotus will bloom again." The monks fall silent, each lost in thought. Some recall the cruelty of Cunda, others the envy of Devadatta. They begin to see that these are not merely the stories of others, but mirrors showing the hidden corners of their own hearts. The Buddha, sensing their reflection, says, "Do not turn away from these stories. To deny the shadow is to deny the light. Just as the lotus needs the mud to grow, you too must embrace the parts of yourself you wish to avoid. Meet them with compassion, not judgment. That is how one transforms pain into wisdom." He lifts a fallen lotus petal from the ground and holds it between his fingers. "This petal," he says, "once grew in the dark, but see how white it is now. So pure, so soft. Every being carries this potential to be born from suffering into peace. The monks' faces soften. The lesson enters their hearts like gentle rain upon parched earth. The Buddha then speaks of another story, a tale of purity and grace, the opposite reflection of all the suffering they have heard. He tells them of a young woman from Savatthi, radiant and gentle, whose mind, though housed in a fragile body, shone brighter than gold. Her name was Sumana, the granddaughter of Visakha, a great devotee of the Buddha, and the daughter of the generous house of Anathapindika. Though young in years, her wisdom was vast. Her heart was filled not with fear, but with faith, not with desire, but with understanding. When illness came upon her, she faced it not with despair, but with calm acceptance. Even as her body weakened, her spirit grew luminous. Her final words, spoken without fear, revealed the depth of her awakening. She, the Buddha said, is the lotus among ashes. Her mind rose above all sorrow, untouched by the decay of the world. The monks felt a stillness settle within them. The sound of the night returned, the soft rustle of leaves, the whisper of water against the pond's edge, the faint hum of unseen life. The Buddha looked up at the moon once more and said, "There are two kinds of joy, the joy of the world and the joy of the heart. The first fades with time, but the second deepens, even beyond death. The one who lives in virtue carries that joy like a flame that no wind can extinguish." He turned his gaze back to his disciples. "Now I will tell you the story of such a flame, of Sumana, whose goodness carried her beyond this world into the realm of joy. Listen well, for her life is the answer to all sorrow." The monks folded their hands. The night seemed to pause, as if the earth itself leaned closer. The Buddha closed his eyes briefly, and in that silence, the fragrance of the lotus filled the air, a reminder that even where ashes lie, new life can begin. He opened his eyes, calm and clear as the moonlit pond, and said, "Let us begin the story of joy." In the heart of Savatthi stood two great homes known throughout the land, one belonging to Anathapindika, the noble householder who fed 2,000 monks each day, and the other to Visakha, the wise and generous devotee of the Buddha. Within these homes, kindness flowed like an endless river, and from this lineage of virtue was born a young maiden named Sumana. She was radiant, not in beauty of face, but in serenity of spirit. Her eyes carried the calm of one who saw beyond appearances. Though she was young, her heart was old with wisdom. Her voice was soft, her laughter rare but sincere, her hands always busy serving others. From childhood, she listened to the teachings of the Buddha. While her friends played, she would sit by her grandmother, Visakha, asking quiet questions about the Dhamma, about life, death, and the stillness that lies beyond both. In her heart grew a faith so pure that even sorrow could not find room to stay. When she came of age, she began to serve meals to the monks in place of her elders. She would rise before dawn, light the lamps, and offer food with reverence and joy. As she served, she listened to their chants, her mind anchored in mindfulness. Slowly, through patience and reflection, her understanding deepened. She reached the first stage of awakening Satipana, the stream enterer, one who can never again be lost to delusion. Her family rejoiced, yet she remained humble. She once said softly, "Even a candle must keep its flame low to light another without pride." Years passed. One by one, her sisters married and left home, yet Sumana's devotion did not waver. Her days were quiet, her joy inward, but fate, as always, ripened in its own time. One evening, a fever took hold of her. At first, it seemed mild, a passing ache, a weakness of breath. But soon, her body grew frail, her lips pale, her strength faded like the moon at dawn. Her family gathered, their hearts heavy with worry. Her father, Anathapindika, rushed to her side. Seeing her frail and silent, he whispered, "My dear Sumana, do you recognize me?" Her eyes opened gently. A faint smile touched her lips. She said softly, "Yes, brother, what is it?" Her father blinked in confusion. "Brother," he said, "my child, are you delirious?" Her breath was shallow, but her voice remained steady. "No, brother," she replied, "I am not delirious." He leaned closer. "Then are you afraid, dear?" "No," she whispered, "I am not afraid." Those were her last words. Her chest rose once more, then fell like a final wave upon the shore. And with that quiet breath, Sumana departed this world. Her father was struck by grief. Though wise, he was still a father, and love made his understanding tremble. He arranged the funeral rites with trembling hands, then went to the Buddha, his eyes filled with tears. When he bowed before the master, the Buddha looked upon him gently and said, "Householder, why do you grieve?" "Lord," Anathapindika replied, "I know death is common to all beings. Yet I am sorrowful not because she died, but because she seemed to lose her clarity at the end. She called me brother instead of father. I fear she was delirious." The Buddha smiled that quiet, knowing smile that dissolves confusion without a word. "Your daughter, noble banker," he said, "was not delirious. She spoke from wisdom. Her mind had risen above worldly perception. You are a Satipana, but she was a Sakadagami, one who has gone further upon the path." From that higher vision, she saw clearly that the bonds of father and daughter are only illusions of this world. She called you brother because she saw you as an equal upon the path of liberation. Anathapindika bowed deeply, his tears softening into awe. "Lord, where has she been reborn?" "In the Tusita heaven," said the Buddha, "the realm of radiant joy. There she rejoices, surrounded by beings of light. As she rejoiced here in virtue, she rejoices now in the fruits of her purity." The Buddha then recited the verse that has since echoed through the ages. Here he rejoices, hereafter he rejoices. The doer of good rejoices in both worlds. Thinking, "I have done good," he rejoices, and even more when he enters the realm of joy. He explained that Sumana's joy was not a gift from the gods, but the natural unfolding of her own deeds. Her kindness, her humility, her mindfulness. These were the seeds she had sown, and they now flowered into heavenly bliss. He said, "Just as a tree heavy with fruit bends low, so too does the wise one, full of virtue, bow with humility. Your daughter lived thus. Her joy will endure for ages." The monks and lay followers who listened felt their hearts expand. Many attained the first stages of enlightenment upon hearing her story. The Buddha continued, "In this world, one rejoices upon doing good, and in the next, one rejoices in the result. To those who live in awareness, every moment is a step toward freedom." And so, the story of Sumana spread not as a tale of loss, but of victory. Parents taught it to their children, monks told it to the weary, and travelers whispered it beneath the stars. It reminded all that the joy of the righteous shines beyond death, like a lamp that never dims. As the Buddha concluded, he gazed at the horizon where dawn was breaking. "Let her life be your example," he said softly. "Let her calm be your guide. When the body falls away, only the heart's purity remains. Tonight, as you listen, breathe quietly and feel the peace of Sumana within you. Let her calm become yours. Imagine her now, radiant, smiling, dwelling among the Tusita heavens, free from pain, free from time. Her light is not far. It rests in every heart that lives gently, that gives freely, that dies without fear. And now, as the night folds around you, her story fades like a lullaby into silence. But from that silence, another whisper rises, a reflection to carry into your dreams. The night has deepened. The stars above Devadatta shine like quiet witnesses to all that has been spoken, the sorrow of Cunda, the joy of Dhammika, the fall of Devadatta, and the radiance of Sumana. Each story, like a drop of rain, has fallen into the same great lake, the lake of the heart. Now the surface of that lake grows still. Close your eyes. Breathe softly. Let each breath draw you closer to silence. Feel the body sink deeper into calm. Let the weight of the day melt away, like sand slipping through your fingers. In this stillness, imagine yourself standing beside a lake at dawn. The water is so clear that it reflects the sky perfectly. Not one ripple disturbs its surface. The air is cool, the world unhurried. A single lotus floats upon the water, its petals closed, waiting for the light. This lake is your mind. Every thought, every memory, every feeling has rested here, stirring its waters. Some have made it cloudy, some bright. But tonight, you will let it all settle. For when the waters of the heart grow clear, truth appears on its surface, quiet, luminous, complete. Listen again, not with ears, but with awareness, to what the Buddha taught through these stories. He said, "Here he grieves, hereafter he grieves. The one who harms suffers in both worlds." This was the teaching of Cunda, the butcher who carried pain within him until his very breath turned to anguish. From his suffering, we learn that every act carries its echo. To harm another is to harm oneself. Then here he rejoices, hereafter he rejoices. The one who performs good rejoices in both worlds. This was Dhammika's lesson. The man whose giving made his heart so light that even death bowed before him. From his peace, we learn that joy is not found in wealth, but in selfless action. Again, here he is tormented, hereafter he is tormented. The one who deceives is consumed in both realms. This was Devadatta's fate, the monk who sought greatness without purity, whose own fire became his suffering. From his fall, we learn that pride is the most silent form of pain, and envy the shadow of ignorance. And finally, here she rejoices, hereafter she rejoices. The one who lives in virtue shines in both worlds. This was the truth of Sumana, the maiden who faced death as gently as one falls asleep, whose heart carried her beyond the reach of sorrow. From her radiance, we learn that purity of heart is the highest joy. 4 stories, 4 mirrors, each reflecting the law that binds all beings. Whatever we think, speak, and do shapes the path before us. In this universe, nothing is forgotten. Every whisper of kindness, every breath of compassion, every act of harm, all return like waves upon the same shore. Yet this is not a threat. It is the great mercy of existence. For it means that change is always possible. The Buddha said, "By oneself is evil done. By oneself is one defiled. By oneself is evil left undone. By oneself is one purified." Purity and impurity depend on oneself. No one can purify another. Take a slow breath and feel that truth settle within you. You are both the painter and the canvas. You are the seed and you are the soil. Now imagine the lake again. The first light of dawn touches the horizon. Slowly, the lotus begins to open, petal by petal, revealing its radiant heart. The reflection of the sky glows upon the water. The surface remains still, undisturbed. You stand there, watching, silent, awake. This lotus is your awareness, rising from the mud of confusion, blossoming into clarity. You have walked through shadow and light, through grief and joy, through fire and peace. You have seen what happens when the heart forgets, and what happens when it remembers. Now let the remembering remain. As you breathe, repeat quietly within, "May my thoughts be kind. May my words be gentle. May my actions bring peace. May I awaken to the truth of my own heart." Let these words echo softly, like ripples across the water. Each breath carries them deeper into your being. The Buddha once said, "Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without." That peace is not distant. It is here, in this breath, in this silence, in this moment of being completely present. All that is past, all pain, all joy, is part of the same vast teaching. Every sorrow can become understanding. Every wound can become compassion. You do not have to escape the world to find freedom. You only have to see it clearly and respond with love. Now imagine the sun rising fully above the lake. Its light spreads across the water, touching everything equally: the flowers, the stones, the shadows. Nothing is excluded from its warmth. In that same way, let your compassion spread through every part of your life, to your past self, your future self, to all beings seen and unseen. Breathe in peace. Breathe out love. The stories of the Dhammapada end here, but their wisdom never ends. They live on in every moment you choose awareness over reaction, forgiveness over blame, stillness over restlessness. As you drift toward sleep, imagine yourself floating upon the still lake of your own heart. The water supports you completely. The air is gentle. The world is silent. Let the body rest. Let the mind soften. Let the heart open like the morning lotus. You are safe. You are seen. You are whole. And as the last sound of night fades, a whisper of the Buddha's teaching remains. By purity of mind, one finds peace. By compassion, one finds joy. By wisdom, one finds release. Sleep now in that peace, timeless, boundless, infinite. May your dreams be clear, your heart light, your awakening gentle. Good night, dear soul. May the lake of your heart remain still, forever reflecting the light of truth.